Hey everybody, my name's Mike and welcome back to the Income Property Renovation. Last episode, we tore out 2 layers of old vinyl tile in the dining room and kitchen, and that exposed some high spots and low spots in the subfloor that we're fixing in today's episode. So let's get to it.
The first fix that I'd like to show you is backfilling a space where I had walls dividing the kitchen, living room, and dining room. I want to be able to lay my floors flat across this transition, so I cut this plywood in MDF to the same width as a 2x4. The MDF is about 1/16 of an inch thicker than the radiata pine plywood, and this is consistent with the height difference between the plywood subfloor and the hardwood floors that we're going to be going over. So stay tuned, I'm going to show you how to fix everything. Make sure to use a moisture barrier between the foundation and this new plywood or MDF, and just cut away the excess.
Now some of y'all might have noticed that I'm actually using a thick 6mm black trash bag as this waterproof membrane. This is common for doing a small section, but I'll leave here to leave a link below to a roll of moisture barrier.
This small fix is in the master bedroom where we're altering the closet space to make it larger. There were some dividing walls here, but now the floor can float right over it.
I've got this one patch right here, maybe where an old floor furnace was, and this plywood is raised compared to the rest of the subfloor. Now I could take this section out and replace it, but I'd like to show you how to take care of problem areas with a power planer. You just turn the knob to set the depth that you're looking to go, and this works a lot like a manual planer, except this has spinning blades to carve away the wood.
With all of the tar and leftover adhesive on the face of this plywood, I couldn't quite see all of the nail heads, but as soon as I was able to see them or feel them, I made sure to punch them beneath the surface I was carving down to. In general, it's best to go with the grain, and I'm just trying to make all of my edges and corners line up without a high spot in the middle.
Now that we're close, I'm gonna use a straight edge to make sure I don't have any particularly high or low points. So we're mostly flat, but there's a dip in the subfloor here, so we'll build this up with a little self-leveling. So the good news I've got is that these plywood subfloors are in good enough shape that we can reuse them. But anytime you're working in a remodel, you're sure to uncover some imperfections. I've got a couple of small gaps between some of these plywood panels that I want to fill, and just a couple low spots or dips. Like in the corner of this panel right here, where I'll have to backfill and level this out a bit.
To do that, I'm going to use Henry Feather Finish. Now this is made for this task. It's a specialty concrete product with no aggregate that bonds to basically any surface that you can thin out to a feather edge. This particular task, leveling out and filling any seams in a plywood subfloor, is what this product is made for. But I've also used it a couple times for skim coat concrete countertops, and I'll leave a link to that below if you're interested. Anywhere there were gaps between the plywood sheets, I backfilled that with concrete, and then I used a decent amount of downward pressure to smooth everything out. I do not want to build up a concrete layer because then I'm going to have to sand that back down. Instead, I want to stay really flat and smooth with the existing surface of the plywood. And I used this exact same technique on the new plywood I laid down to make sure that I would have a smooth transition and no gaps.
I need to add just a little bit of concrete to make sure the MDF is level with our hardwood floor.
Once again, I'm not building up a thick layer here. I'm just making a smooth transition between that new MDF and the hardwoods that are laid down already. In following steps, I'm going to lay down a roll of underlayment to address the height difference between the plywood subfloor and the hardwood floors that are there. That's why I didn't feather this edge out. Instead, I kept a sharp line that I'll be able to cut the underlayment to so that everything can match. Oh, and FYI, even though this concrete was starting to cure on me, I was able to use it to backfill a couple of the bad planks in the original hardwoods.
Now it's time to fix our big low spot. So everything is super flat for the most part, as you can see. But on this panel right here that I'm standing, there's a low spot or a dip in the middle. It's most severe here on the front of the panel. As I work my way back, it gets flatter as I go. If this plywood was super clean, I'd probably skim coat right over it. But since I had a tough time getting all of the adhesive up and scraped away, I'm gonna be using this bonding primer. This should allow my new concrete to bond really well to the plywood subfloor, and it is really easy to apply. Just put on a coat with a brush, roller, whatever works. Make sure you get a good spread and don't allow it to pool, and then just let it cure for about 10-12 hours. I'm using Henry Unipro, this is 547, for this larger patch. This comes in a larger bag than the feather finish, but it can still skim coat down to a feather edge. My dip isn't deeper than 1/2 inch, but you can pour this up to 1 inch thick if you need to.
And pro tip, make sure you've got everything prepped because this will cure on you quick if you leave it in the bucket.
I'm starting on this end here where I know the dip is worse. You can mix this stuff so that it just self-levels, but I want to be able to work it with a trowel and screed it with a board. All right, I'm gonna need to work with this quick, and I'm starting on this end where I know the dip is biggest. So I'm just gonna trowel it and get it flattened, get a rough spread going, and then I'm gonna screed it. I'm gonna add a little bit more concrete here to the front before it dries on me in the bucket. Spread it out. I'm gonna keep pressure on the sides, filling up the void in the center.
And if you do this task, make sure you choose a really straight board as your reference edge.
Hitting something.
I did 2 passes just to make sure I didn't have any high or low spots.
And there we go, we are now flat.
After I cleaned up the excess concrete, I went around the edge of the patch with my trowel and just feathered and blended everything smooth.
And here you can see where the dip was the largest, especially where the concrete's still curing. That was intense. This stuff dries fast, but I think it went okay. Both of the concretes that I used can easily be sanded with the 80 or 150 grit paper, so I'll use my random orbit to clean and smooth any imperfections.
And we'll do that right after a word from today's sponsor,
Squarespace. If you need a website, online store, or just a custom domain, Squarespace is your one-stop shop. And now, with Fluid Engine, Squarespace's next-generation website designing platform, it has never been easier to unlock your unbreakable creativity. Just start with one of Squarespace's best-in-class templates that look amazing right out of the gate. And then you can customize literally every aspect with Squarespace's enhanced drag-and-drop technology on desktop and mobile. There are no limits to the number of products that you can sell using a Squarespace site, whether that's a physical good, a digital good, or a service product. And if you take payments in person, Squarespace has got you covered. By connecting the Square card reader to the Squarespace app, all of your sales, orders, and inventory can stay up to date online and in person. So to learn more, make sure and follow my link in the description, squarespace.com/modernbuilds, where you can build out your entire Squarespace site before entering any of your credit card info. And then when it's time to make your site live, don't forget to use my code ModernBuilds for 10% off your first site, store, or domain through Squarespace. Okay, let's keep fixing these subfloors.
once the concrete was cured, I came back with a chisel to clean up any of the high points or any leftover concrete on the subfloor. This was plenty for the area over the MDF, but on the large patch, I wanted to spend a little bit of time with 80 grit on my random orbit sander. This helped me fix anywhere that I didn't do the best trowel work. I'm not an expert when it comes to doing concrete, especially concrete over a subfloor, but I was able to smooth the whole patch and blend all of the edges around the subfloor.
Oh yeah, it's flat. So our floors are level, and now it's time to install this underlayment to get our plywood subfloor up to the same height as our hardwood flooring that we're gonna be installing our vinyl on top of. This quiet walk underlayment is gonna help with any of the inconsistencies in our subfloor seams and any adhesive left over. That way everything sits really flat. And this underlayment is great for vinyl because of its compression resistance. It also just so happens to be the right height to get our two surfaces on the same plane. I'll make sure and leave a link to this stuff down below.
When you're cutting this stuff, make sure you've got a really sharp knife, and in fact, a carpet knife for cutting carpet padding would be the best tool here. I'll leave a link below. With this product, you want the padding down and the liner on the top. So after it's cut to length, you'll flip it over, then orient it into place. And I left this piece a little long so that I could cut around these obstacles a little more easily. It's best to put this underlayment down in a way so that the boards going on top of it are perpendicular, like what I'm doing here. Oh, and be about 1/4 of an inch off the wall. Most underlayment has a built-in seam tape. You just peel away the film from the adhesive and then lay the film from the other padding over top. I also decided to use seam tape around the perimeter of the room just to keep my pieces in place since I was doing this task on my own. It's not absolutely necessary, but it was helpful for me. Anywhere you've got patches though, make sure you go around every edge. As I moved into the kitchen, I turned my underlayment 90 degrees. That way I would have less to cut around and it would just be easier to lay. This just helps simplify everything and it is not the end of the world. While I've got you really quick, I'd like to talk about why I'm using this luxury vinyl plank specific underlayment, or what makes it specific to LVP. The compression rating that I mentioned earlier is the biggest thing. This underlayment is a lot more like carpet padding than it is like a lot of the more affordable foam underlayments. That foam is fine for laminates or engineered hardwoods, but it is not suitable for LVP because over time, it can break down and lose that compression rating. This can cause your joint or seam to break or separate and then cause more problems down the line. The wider your plank is, the less dramatic any effects from this will be, but this LVP underlayment isn't more expensive than a lot of the good brands like Pergo out there for standard laminates and stuff like that.
Wow, that's super flat. Check that out. It's perfect. And now the flooring's gonna be able to pass over really easily.
So there you have it. It's Mike's First Flip, episode 10. We're coming a long way. I'm not the fastest renovator out there, but I am doing my best and I'm trying to get this done the right way, not the fast way. I am curious though, if you've used affordable foam underlayment with LVP, let me know your results.
I wasn't even planning on making this video, but I hope it helped. After I uncovered these subfloors, I realized there was a lot of work that you guys might come across too. If this video was helpful, make sure and give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you're not already. Next time you see me, I'll be installing luxury vinyl plank flooring. It should be a ton of fun, and I'll see you there. Bye, everybody.